At one point, Smith Ellis owned a general store with a gentleman by the name of Tom East in the Indian Territory. And they were located, his little general store was located in a town called Sodtown, Oklahoma. And I think it was, the only general store for many, many miles in all those directions. Well, evidently there was a little feud between these two towns. And there was a Lockwood, Oklahoma, and the Lockwood people did not like the Sodtown people. So one day, whoever the Lockwood people were, they came and decided to rob the general store where my grandfather was. And in came a big fight. And I think there was 4 or 5 guys on their side, and it was my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and his partner Tom East was on the other side. Well, Tom East shot somebody and killed him, and then Tom East was killed. And then my great-grandfather shot somebody as well and killed them. So, and back then they used to use what was called a smoke wagon. It was an old Colt 45, but they used such lousy powder in those things that literally when they pulled the trigger, the whole room would fill up in smoke. Well, when I got to the bank, I found a .45 Colt gun in my closet. And so I decided, could this be the gun that was actually involved in that holdup? And so I wrote off to got the serial number off the gun, and I wrote to the Colt company and asked them to verify this. And they said, sure enough, that is the weapon. And it was actually sold in Douglas, Oklahoma, I think in 1914. Now, how that gun actually ended up in my great-grandfather's possession, I have no idea. The connection was not made. In 1929, the federal government issued what were called national currency. And national currency wasn't on the gold reserve. It was backed by the bonds and general obligations of the federal government. In this $5 bill, my son-in-law alerted to me that this was on sale at eBay. So I took a keen interest in that. And on the side of the bill is our charter number when we were a national charter. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but it's on both sides. This is a national currency type A bill. This is the last year they were ever made, right? So I get into this bidding war, and I think there was 9 of us. And I think there was like 70 back and forth between these nice individuals to actually buy this bill. I was the winner. But I was going to be the winner anyway. It didn't really matter. I paid $2,500 for that $5 bill. But it means so much to me. And from what I've talked to other bill collectors, and they said there's only one other known to be in existence of that bill in there. And if you look at the bill itself, these bills were sent to the bank and the officers signed the bill. So on this bill, F.P. Rogers, not the Secretary of the Treasury, F.P. Rogers' signature on that, and then a local entrepreneur, Jody Holland, his great uncle's signature is on there as well. His name was Haskell Holland, and I think he was hired in the 1930s somewhere. Really proud of that bill. I think that's pretty neat, and it's in prime condition. There's some other publications that I've always been interested in, and it had my great-grandfather's name on there as a director, and they were information that was sent out to all the customers about the Interior Department and the Department of Transportation, and so it was a kind of communication pieces. But when you think about 1924, how long ago that was and what the economy was and what the world was like back then, I think that stuff's pretty cool. We do have a piece back here, and it's kind of interesting. It's an oval shape, and when I originally found it in this box, I thought it was a kitchen magnet, right? Because it's got that shape, and it's got metal on the background. And what's interesting about this is the First National Bank of Ochiltree, Texas. So this was pre-1919. It had $40,000 worth of capital on the piece, right? And so that was $10,000 more than what we had started the bank with, right? So I'm putting this at about 1914, 1915, something like that, and it was just a giveaway. What I think is unique about it, on the back of it, that metal's not a magnet, it's actually a whetstone. So if you remember way back when, almost everybody, the ladies, everybody had a pocket knife, and that's what they cut their meat with. Right? And so how handy would that be? Now, it wouldn't be handy today, but it would be really handy back then to be able to sharpen your knife on. So it was just a giveaway. So I thought that was pretty neat. That's actually my grandfather. I think that's back from the 50s someplace. Yeah, he was a big pilot. He loved to pilot. He had an examiner come down and was examining the bank, and my grandfather was pretty competitive. He was actually a semi-pro boxer when he was a kid. My grandfather said, "Hey, you want to go? Got a new plane? You want to go on the plane?" I said, "Sure, I'll go with you." So they go out there. My grandfather has a 2-engine plane, right? And he gets it up there in the air, and my grandfather turns around and looks at him and says, "What if this thing will run without one engine?" And he proceeds to just shut the engine down. So now it's just flying with one. And of course, this guy's getting nervous. I would be getting nervous anyway. And then he goes ahead and shuts the other engine down. And they go into a stall, and they recover, and they actually land this thing. And of course, I don't think that regular ever came back. He was good. Whatever those guys want, this is a good bank. But one thing my grandfather would not do was condone women being treated wrong. There was a guy went to a bank in Spearman, Texas, and some big old cowboy, loud, and he'd go in there and he's trying to borrow some money and just all this and all that. And they actually called Perryton and warned Perryton, this guy is going around and he is trouble. So he comes into our bank, and my grandfather is in with another customer. And then all of a sudden, he starts hearing cuss words coming from the lobby. And my grandfather comes out, and he goes to this old boy, and I mean, he's 5'8". I don't know how big this guy was, but evidently he was pretty good size. And he told him, "You cannot ever say another word like that in front of these ladies." And he presided to tell my grandfather what to do, and my grandfather cold-cocked him right in the middle of the lobby. And had no regrets about it. Had the sheriff come in and haul him out of the bank.